I recently attended adventure bike training with West 38 Moto at the California location in Borrego Springs. I signed up for the level 2 class, which meant that the first day was shared with the level 1 class, and the second day was a little more challenging. I also signed up for the subsequent day ride on the third day. Unfortunately, due to equipment issues, I only got footage from the first day, even though the second day and the day ride were really the most interesting. So I'll be summarizing my experience with some of the day 1 footage playing in the background. For the first day, the exercises were mostly similar to what I've experienced at RawHyde Adventures and Sedlak Off-Road School, now called SoCal Off-Road School. There were a few exercises that I hadn't done before. One of them was stopping and starting without ever sitting down on the bike, just doing it standing and learning to do that without falling back to sitting down on your bike. But overall, the biggest difference in teaching between schools, I find, is just the style of the teaching, and it's probably very much subjective and up to what one prefers. For me, the biggest difference compared to the past experiences was a combination of two things. The first is the fact that I signed up to the level 2 class and got to practice skills that were beyond what I had practiced before. And the second was the terrain that we had available to us in Borrego Springs. I'd been looking forward to getting more comfortable with sand, and there's definitely plenty of sand to find in this area. During the first day of level 1 training, we did get some minimal exposure to riding in sand. On the second day, we spent some more time in the sand for the exercises part, and we spent it in deeper sand than on the first day. We also practiced lofting the front wheel and doing skid turns, that is, locking the rear and letting it skid in order to turn tighter. Probably my favorite level 2 exercise was doing tight turns on a hill. Imagine a fairly steep hillside, and imagine going on that hill horizontally, with the top of the hill to one side and the bottom of the hill to the other. Now add to this turning left and right, going from 90-degree uphill, turning towards the top of the hill to go 90 degrees downhill, and then turning uphill again, etc. This was extremely challenging and was also the most physically demanding exercise I've done on any of these adventure bike trainings. We all had to take breaks just to catch our breath. There was also some extra fun to be had because at the very bottom of this hill was a very deep, soft, sandy area that we wanted to keep out of. The overall highlight for me on the second day was riding trails, sandy trails. We spent a few hours riding what to me was fairly challenging trails with significant portions of them having medium deep sand. It was during this trail riding that something really clicked with me about the technique of steering with the rear by leveraging throttle and body position to change direction by allowing the rear wheel to spin, as opposed to steering with your handlebars or just relying on leaning alone. We had done this during the exercises portion, but it didn't truly click in my head until I practiced it on the actual trail and allowed the rear wheel to spin a little bit longer than I had before during practice. Overall, day 2 felt awesome, and I felt like I had leveled up my skill set by adding the steering with the rear wheel technique to my tool belt. Definitely need plenty more practice and so on. I'm nowhere beyond a beginner at it, but I do have this technique now, and I feel like I have the basic technique to grow my sand riding skills a lot more, and I do feel a lot more comfortable now when riding in sand after this experience. Tight turns are still difficult, and I take it super slow coming into the turn, but less tight turns and straightaways feel great now, even when it's sandy. So far, I still like riding in sand, even if it's challenging. I'm still waiting to see if I'll eventually come to just hate it, like most people seem to do, but so far I actually find it fun, as long as I know the basic technique and I know what to do. Obviously, it's not fun if you're struggling and dropping your bike every 5 feet or something like that, but when you're not doing that, I find it fun, personally. On the third day, which was the day ride, the group got together for an extended whole-day trail ride. There was no particular technique training, just a lot of diverse terrain. Some of it was sandy, some of it was rutted out, some of it was hard-packed, some of it was hilly, just a real good mix of terrain. And I felt a lot more faster than I'd been in the past, just because of the skill set that I had sort of up-leveled, or at least I felt like it on the day before. Especially on the sandy parts. As I mentioned, I feel much more comfortable in sand now. And there was just a lot of opportunity on this trail ride to practice the steering with the rear technique. Whether it's on coming out of turns or whether it's on straightaways and using it to pick a line, even if the terrain is sandy and so on. Overall, I thought I'd give some comparisons between West 38 Moto and RawHyde based on my experiences in both. I think there's basically two major differences that I would call out. One difference, at least with the California location, is the terrain. RawHyde's property is great, and it has a ton of good riding, but at least from what I saw, it's mostly hard-packed without sand, aside from the two sand pits that they have. So if what you really want to practice is sand, I think you'll have more opportunities with the California West 38 Moto location, just because of the terrain. The other big difference is the non-riding parts of the experience. RawHyde is more expensive, but part of that additional cost goes to on-site lodging and 3 meals a day with a chef making it locally on-site. West 38 is less expensive, and you stay at a local hotel, whichever one you want, and they do arrange some group dinners, but it's on your own dime at a local restaurant. If you only care about the riding portion itself, this probably means that West 38 Moto is a bit more cost-effective. If you really like the group camaraderie and you like the idea of on-site lodging with the group, spending evenings and a night in one place, kind of like a luxurious version of moto camping, except with real beds and a kitchen and a chef nearby, then RawHyde provides that in a way that West 38 Moto does not. Personally, I've enjoyed both experiences, and I will likely be returning to both of them in the future.